Hey, we are in First Samuel chapter 21, chapter 22, and we see some crazy things happening. David is on the run. He is a fugitive from King Saul. And so he is running from town to town, and he goes to this city called Nob, where the tabernacle is now located, and the priests are there. And he kind of hides out for a minute. So let's go ahead and get into that. But there's several little avenues we need to take so that we can see the big picture of what's going on. So let's go ahead and begin in chapter 21. David went to see Ahimelech, a priest who lived in the town of Nob. Ahimelech was trembling with fear as he came out to meet David. "Why are you alone?" Ahimelech asked. "Why isn't anyone else with you?" "I'm on a mission for King Saul," David answered. "He ordered me not to tell anyone what the mission was all about, so I had my soldiers stay somewhere else. Do you have any food you can give me? Could you spare 5 loaves of bread?" "The only bread I have is the sacred bread," the priest told David. "You can have it if your soldiers didn't sleep with women last night." "Well, of course we didn't sleep with women," David answered. "I never let my men do that when we're on a mission. They have to be acceptable to worship God even when we're on a regular mission, and today we're on a special mission." The only bread the priest had was the sacred bread that he had taken from the place of worship after putting out the fresh loaves, so he gave it to David. It so happened that one of Saul's officers was there, worshiping the Lord that day. His name was Doeg the Edomite, and he was the strongest of Saul's shepherds. David asked Ahimelech, "Do you have a spear or a sword? I had to leave so quickly on this mission for the king that I didn't bring along my sword or any other weapons." The priest answered, "The only sword here is the one that belonged to Goliath, the Philistines. You were the one who killed him in Elah Valley. And so you can take his sword if you want to. It's wrapped in a cloth behind the statue." "It's the best sword there is," David said. "I'll take it." David kept on running from Saul that day until he came to Gath, where he met with King Achish. The officers of King Achish were also there, and they asked Achish, "Isn't David a king back in his own country? Doesn't the Israelites dance and sing? Saul has killed 1,000 enemies. David has killed 10,000 enemies." David thought about what they were saying, and it made him afraid of Achish. So right there in front of everybody, he pretended to be insane. He acted confused and scratched up the doors of the town gate while drooling in his beard. "Look at him," Achish said to his officers. "You can see he's crazy. Why did you bring him to me? I have enough crazy people without you. You're bringing another one here. Keep him away from my palace." When David escaped from the town of Gath, he went to Adullam cave. His brothers and the rest of his family found out where he was, and they followed him there. A lot of other people joined him too. Some were in trouble, others were angry or in debt, and David was soon the leader of 400 men. David left Adullam cave and went to the town of Mizpah in Moab, where he talked with the king of Moab. "Please," David said, "let my father and mother stay with you until I find out what God will do with me." So he brought his parents to the king of Moab, and they stayed with him while David was hiding. One day the prophet Gad told David, "Don't stay here, go back to Judah." And David then left and went to Hereth Forest. Saul was sitting under a tree on top of the hill at Gibeah when he heard that David and his men had been seen. Saul was holding his spear, and his officers were standing in front of him, and he told them, "Listen to me. You belong to the Benjamin tribe, so if that son of Jesse ever becomes king, he won't give you fields or vineyards. He won't make you officers in charge of thousands or hundreds as I have done. But you're all plotting against me. Not one of you told me that my own son Jonathan had made an agreement with him. Not one of you cared enough to tell me that Jonathan had helped one of my officers rebel. Now that son of Jesse is trying to ambush me." Doeg the Edomite was standing with the other officers and spoke up. "When I was in the town of Nob, I saw that son of Jesse. He was visiting the priest Ahimelech and the son of Ahitub. Ahimelech talked to the Lord for him, then gave him food and the sword that had belonged to Goliath the Philistine." Saul sent a message to Ahimelech and his whole family of priests at Nob, ordering them to come to him. When they came, Saul told them, Listen to me, you son of Ahitub. Certainly, your majesty, Ahimelech answered. Saul demanded, why did you plot against me with that son of Jesse? You helped him rebel against me by giving him food and a sword and by talking with God for him. Now he's trying to ambush me. Your majesty, none of your officers is more loyal than David, Ahimelech replied. He's your son-in-law and the captain of your bodyguard. Everyone in your family respects him. This isn't the first time I've talked with God for David, and it's never made you angry before. Please don't accuse me of my family like this. I have no idea what's going on. Ahimelech, Saul said, you and your family are going to die. Saul shouted to his bodyguards, these priests of the Lord helped David. They knew he was running away, but they didn't tell me. Kill them. But the king's officers would not attack the priests of the Lord. Saul turned to Doeg, who was from Edom, and said, kill the priests. On that same day, Doeg killed 85 priests, and then he attacked the town of Nob, where the priests had lived, and he killed everyone there, men, women, children, and babies. He even killed their cattle, donkeys, and sheep. Ahimelech's son, Abiathar, was the only one who escaped, and he ran to David and told him, Saul has murdered the priests at Nob. David answered, that day when I saw Doeg, I knew he would tell Saul, your family died because of me. Stay here. Isn't the same person trying to kill both of us? Don't worry. You'll be safe here with me. So we just see some crazy stuff going on. Let's take a look at the map just so we know where we're at and we know what's going on. We know that Saul is from Gibeah. David is from Bethlehem. David goes to Nob first, and he meets with the priest, and there he gets the bread. Now, it's interesting. The priest said, has anybody had sex? Well, Leviticus tells us that they had to be clean before they worship God. And so David affirms the fact that, yeah, nobody has. We're on the run. We're on this we're on this mission. Now, that's found in Leviticus chapter 15. But also, what's important about this is that David eats this to sustain, to give the life back into his guys. They're struggling. They're starving to death. In Mark chapter 3, I think, is where Jesus and his disciples are walking along the road, and the disciples are picking grain on the Sabbath. And the religious leaders get on Jesus saying, what are you guys doing? You're harvesting, you're picking grain on the Sabbath. You can't do that. And Jesus refers back to this passage where David eats this bread, and he says, listen, if David can do this, you guys are making way too big a deal about this. It's not that big a deal. If David can do it, we can do it. And so we know this is a historical fact because Jesus is referring back to it. So David leaves Nob and he runs to Gath, the home of Goliath, the home of King Achish. And there, when they figure out who David is, David just acts like a wild man, and it's just kind of funny to think about. But David is trying to survive. He's on the run. He's got nothing, and so he escapes Gath, runs to the caves in Adullam, which is right here, and there he hides out. And there he is getting he's getting an army together, people who are on the run, people who are trying to find their way, people who are lost. They're going to David. David has got together this ragamuffin band of men, and I bet you they were rough. I mean, I would picture the motorcycle gang. I would picture Robin Hood. It's just a group of guys who are lost, who need a leader, and David is that leader. And then from Adullam, he ends up going all the way over to Moab to find a place for his parents to live, and to be able to keep them safe. Now, what's interesting is that Doeg is not even an Israelite, but he is in the army of Saul. So we would assume that um, he has been captured in a battle between Saul and the Edomites and has become a servant and followed him. Here's a picture of David's valiant men, is what it's called. It's in the Jewish Museum in New York. It was done by James Tissot, late 1800s, early 1900s, sometime in there. But you just know it's just a ragmuffin band of guys that are getting together and following David. So we see two chapters there where David is a fugitive. Things are crazy. Saul is crazy, killing priests, killing the whole city of Nob, wiping the whole town out. We know that it's obvious that um, Saul is not following God's directions at this time. And when you decide to do things on your own and not follow God's directions, it is easy to see how stupid decisions are made and how we do the same thing when we walk away from God and not seek his advice. We make bad choices. Have a great day.